Welcome to the Story Partners Podcast. I'm Annie Manus, and we're so glad you found us.
This was anxiety times 1,000. It was fear to the max. It was physical pain to the max. And there was no substance in that first level of hell, the first level of torment that could satisfy it. And so everyone is just constantly running around looking for it.
That was Kyle Hubbart talking about his personal story of dying and experiencing hell. We're kicking off season 2 with quite a story. So settle in, buckle up, and get ready for a wild ride. This is season 2, episode 1, To Hell and Back.
My name is Kyle Hubbart, and I'm from Austin, Texas. Growing up, I definitely had a lot of friends. I think that was definitely part of my identity was having a lot of cool friends, being part of the cool group. I definitely wanted to be. I don't know if I always was, but I definitely wanted to be at the cool table. I never really had a desire to read the Bible or to pray. It was just something we did as a family, according to me. I know it was very real for my parents and even my sister, but I didn't. There was a few little pokes in my heart over the years where I was like, okay, I'm feeling something a little bit different. This might be real, but nothing that ever truly gripped me to where I had a relationship with Jesus. It was non-existent. It wasn't my focus at all. It was less than 1% of what I thought about. School had always come easy to me. I worked hard, but it was still at the same time relatively easy. I remember in first grade, I missed one spelling word all year, and it crushed me. I started crying as a first grader. And so that's how driven I was to succeed and be at the top of whatever I was doing. I focused on basketball, so that was my main sport, loved playing that, and ended up being a captain. And my senior year, we did really well, and that was definitely part of my identity growing up. I worked really hard in school, worked really hard in sports. I did well. I was affirmed by teachers and coaches. There was a lot of success. When people say great job, or you see the 100 on the piece of paper, or the teacher recommends you for gifted and talented, you get the trophy, or make the all-star team in baseball, make the all-star team in basketball. There's rewards for doing well and working hard. By the end of high school, I was very, very confident in who I was and what I could offer, with a pretty inflated sense of self-worth. I took the SAT, prepared really hard, studied really hard for the SAT, and knocked it out of the ballpark, and applied for a scholarship to the University of Arkansas with the Sam Walton Foundation because of how well I did on that and my marks in high school, and ended up getting a full ride scholarship to the University of Arkansas, where they paid everything. Now, instead of 1,500 students at Lake Travis High School, you have 20,000 students who you're trying to impress. The pride and arrogance and being puffed up in my own ability definitely grew throughout my first collegiate years. There's the party life at a big SEC school that I was fully invested in. Fridays, Saturdays, having huge parties, having hundreds of people over to our house. It was just feeling good and feeling free, feeling happiness, feeling love, feeling peace. That it was, once I had that first drink, it was, all in. The party life, definitely the primary goal was to receive affection or attention from girls. So those relationships were based primarily on looks and not deeper things of the heart. I think I was confident, bordering on arrogant and cocky. Not even bordering, I definitely was arrogant and cocky, thinking you're the big man on campus. We would what you call pregame, so you drink before the party, and then you drink as much as you can during the party, and then by the end of the night, you don't know where you're at and what I think medically is considered a blackout state where you're doing things and you don't know necessarily what you're doing, and you wake up in a place or a house and you don't know how you got there. So that was actually pretty typical for myself and some of my friends that were involved in this level. And so it wasn't casual relational drinking, it was full-blown alcoholism in a scene or setting in college where it's kind of considered acceptable. Believers or Christians, I really looked down on. I despised them. I thought they used religion or Christianity as a crutch. I thought they were deluded, deceived, weak. They needed this God to rely on. And I thought they were, of all people, the most to be pitied. It's like those poor Christians. There were some notable people who took an interest and an investment in me on the God side. I wasn't readily accepting it in my heart, but I definitely noticed that there were a handful of guys who really loved Jesus. He was real to them. Jesus was real to these people. And I remember clearly they would walk around campus just full of the joy of the Lord. I didn't know it was the joy of the Lord. I just knew they were always happy. And it kind of irritated me because on the inside, I wasn't that happy. I was depressed, trying to keep up an image, anxious probably on the inside, but they had this smile and this joy that they carried around campus, and I knew they were different. And they were special, they were different. But for me, I didn't believe that God was real. I thought they were believing in a fairy tale. I thought it was a pipe dream. So I didn't receive their love and their witness of the Lord at that time. Freshman, sophomore year, leading the junior year, I was still nailing it academically. And so I was able for some time to juggle the party life and doing my own thing and not living the right way, and the schoolwork and the school load in a reasonable way throughout my first 2 years leading into my junior year. It was still relatively easy. When the alcohol became an everyday thing, the root of it was actually a couple things my junior year. So I turned 21. I was living in this really cool party house. We would have hundreds of people over on the weekend. These are really cool guys. I had everything going for me. I was driving a Range Rover. I had a full ride scholarship. I kind of had the life as a 21-year-old, having not really earned any of it, but I was living the quote, the life. And a couple things happened. I started using alcohol by myself. If I was nervous before a date, or if I was nervous before an event, to calm the nerves or to feel those good feelings, that's when it started to be like, okay, if you're not drinking, even when you're drinking out and partying, you're still with other people and it's still what other people are doing. It's still considered alcoholism, but when it started to become a private thing to get through an event or to get through a day, that's when I knew it had a grip on me, and it's not good. This is I'm on a dangerous path. Yeah, there's definitely moments where you're like, that was a terrifying night, meaning I hope I didn't hurt someone or hurt myself, or you wake up with sores on your knees or whatever, you realize you fell. And so there's those sobering Sunday mornings or Saturday mornings where you wake up and it's like, I should probably not do this as much, or I should probably, this is detrimental, this is dangerous, something really bad could happen. So there's definitely that realization. But then when it came to the night and you have another drink, then you forget about it and you just live and let die. I took my first organic honors chemistry test as a pre-med major, a really intense class. And I, just like every other test I'd ever taken in my life, I thought I did really well in it. Well, this is a different level of class, honors organic chemistry. I realized when I turned over that first test, I had failed that test. I got a 65. As soon as I saw that test score and that failure, I realized things are starting to crumble. Like, this is a first flick on the house of cards in my life. These unstable pillars and foundations I've built my life on. That was a major flick of, oh, I've just failed this really important test in this really important class. It felt like they were starting to crumble. And then I got caught in a stupid lie with my roommates where I was trying to look really cool and impress my roommates. And I got caught in that lie, and all of them saw me get caught in the lie. And so I felt like I lost trust with my relationship with the people that I was living with my roommates. And so that was another flick on the house of cards on the foundation. So those happened within a few weeks of each other. That really led me into a quick downward spiral where I was waking up with an anxiety attack, or waking up with feeling the heaviness and depression, not wanting to go to class, not wanting to show my face to my roommates around me. So that's when it turned into drinking from morning until night, just to feel not an anxiety attack or not depressed. And so it quickly became a physical addiction, not just a social or an emotional thing, to where I would wake up shaking physically. The central nervous system becomes dependent on that substance and reacts when your body doesn't have the alcohol, and it starts to overfire. And so that was in 2010 as a junior, as a 21-year-old in college, to where I would wake up feeling all these incredibly awful feelings in my body, these awful emotions. And so I would drink just to start to feel normal again. In those moments, I was feeling self-failure and failure from the people around me. I don't really necessarily think the people around me were thinking I was a failure. It was just more of a self-condemnation, but I definitely felt like I wasn't meeting my own expectations or the expectations of my friends around me in the relationships, and definitely not the expectations of my parents, because I knew I wasn't living what they considered to be the right life, which was to follow God, to follow Jesus. And so pretty much no one around me, I felt, was approving of my life, including myself. And so it became a really negative downward spiral. So I went from kind of riding on top of the clouds, thinking I was everything, to very quickly thinking that there was no point to life. And I really truly believe there is a demonic spirit of suicide, a spirit of death that lies to people, saying you're better off dead. And I started to hear those voices, to hear those thoughts of, the best thing for you, Kyle, is to end it. You failed in your academics, you failed in relationships, you failed in your parents' eyes. The best thing to do is for you not to exist anymore. So I started to have suicidal thoughts and suicidal plans. And so ultimately I didn't want to do that, but they were very loud. I believe that that's the worst, most evil, demonic spirit there is. And so it was bombarding me with thoughts over those months. And the only way that those thoughts would be calmed down is if I drank and forgot about it. And so it was a horrific, horrific dark hole, physically, emotionally, spiritually. I always had a drink next to me. Usually was hiding it in a different cup or something. Obviously, it's closet drinking or sneaking it, obviously, because you can't carry that stuff around. But it would be, over a liter of hard alcohol a day, what would be considered a 24-pack of beer, just to feel normal and actually try to function. My roommates definitely knew something was wrong, because I'm sure the look on my face went from, everything's cool, I'm the guy, to a sullen, dark, something's weighing on Kyle. I would stay in my room and not go to class. It's like I truly gave up. I gave up on life. I gave up on my assignment at school. And so I was staying in, probably lying to them, telling them I was feeling sick, but they knew, hey, something's up with Kyle. At the beginning, my parents definitely did not know what was going on. They knew I was definitely not following the Lord and I was partying too much. They definitely knew that, but they didn't know the severity of what had happened and where I was at that point, until one of my roommates called them and say, hey, I think something's wrong with Kyle. Like, you should probably investigate. So my parents came up actually in November of 2010, just about a month and a half after I've been in this dark hole, and they came and checked me into a hospital to medically detox off the alcohol and make sure that I was safe and not going towards taking my own life, because I was definitely suicidal at that point. So I needed to be hospitalized and medically detoxed off the alcohol and in a controlled environment. When my parents came to rescue me from college and bring me down to the hospital to be checked in order to stop shaking and to stop feeling like literally the world was going to end, out of mercy, my dad bought me alcohol just to get me to the hospital. And so in that 8-hour drive from Fayetteville, Arkansas to Austin, Texas, I drank a 30-pack of beer. And again, it wasn't to feel any pleasure or joy. It was to stop the withdrawal symptoms in my physical body. A lot of alcoholics die from withdrawal if they somehow don't get medically detoxed properly. That car ride was so bad on so many levels. You know, I felt the weight of guilt and shame for what I had done. Being next to your dad, who loved you and raised you and taught you the truth, and him seeing your life literally in shambles, crumbling. And I didn't know what was ahead of me. I didn't have any hope for getting out of this. I knew that they were going to check me into a hospital, but I didn't believe that I could find help or actually be rescued or delivered from this. And I remember, obviously, my dad is praying and we're listening to worship music, we're listening to sermons, and it was this really, the veil was kind of thin between time and eternity, because there was these messages that would come in on the radio, or it was almost like God would sovereignly break in and speak truth to my heart on that car ride home. And so I could definitely tell, like, the devil was wrestling for my soul and God was wrestling for my soul. I was starting to believe that there was something out there. There was definitely evil out there, so there's probably good out there. And so my heart was beginning to open up, even in those last moments before I got checked into the hospital. I get checked into the hospital. I don't remember much from the hospital. They start giving me some medicine to medically detox. And I remember the second night I was there, so this is December 15th, a Saturday night. I remember just the really intense feelings of, yes, I've had withdrawal symptoms in the past, but this was magnified to where I'm now 2 days without alcohol. My body is freaking out because all it's known for the last 2 or 3 years is a constant drip of this central nervous system depressant. And now that's taken away. And so my heart is racing, my nerves are on fire. It feels like my body is in shock, and it really is. It's in fight or flight mode to the extreme. And so I remember it's in the middle of the night, December 15th, Saturday, and I remember my heart starting to beat the fastest I've ever felt it beat before. And so I'm an athlete. I do sprints. I play in a lot of sporting events and games to where your heart's beating fast. But this was, if I were to put a number on it, it was over 200 beats a minute is what it felt like. It felt like my heart was giving its last hurrah, its last go. And it felt like I was having a heart attack. I never had a heart attack before, but I was like, this is probably what is happening. And just this impending fear of death. I felt like death was closing in on me, and these were my last moments. And so I couldn't really do anything. I'm there laying on the hospital bed, heart beating so fast. It's like, this is it. I think I'm dying. I'm having a heart attack. I knew that was a possibility with the withdrawal. Even with the medicine they were giving me to medically withdraw, you can still die. And the level I was drinking, the amount I was drinking, it makes sense that my body would be in that much turmoil. And so my heart goes from beating the fastest I've ever felt it beat before to now it's all of a sudden, it's like out of a movie, time slows down. Everything goes into slow motion. And it feels like my heart is now beating like one beat every 10 seconds. And it's just a slow motion movie scene, but it's real life. And I'm now waiting for the next beat of my heart right there in the hospital. And the next beat of my heart doesn't come. All of a sudden my vision goes black. And so I'm just seeing darkness and blackness with no heartbeat. And so I realize at this point, okay, I've died. but why am I still thinking? I thought when you die, you die. I'm a science major, I'm pre-med. When you die, your bodily faculties stop and there's no more existence, there's no more life, right? That was what I thought, but I'm like, okay, I'm still thinking, I'm still conscious. I'm seeing blackness, I'm seeing darkness, there's no heartbeat. But what was so interesting is that as soon as my vision went black and my heart stopped, everything that I was taught growing up in the church with my parents as pastors, Sunday mornings, Wednesday nights, everything I was taught about God, about the Bible, about heaven, about hell, about the devil, about righteousness, about sin, every single truth I remember from Sunday school growing up, it all immediately became true in my understanding. It went from being a fairy tale, false, this is totally made up, these poor Christians that have this false hope, to, oh my goodness, this is all true. So in a moment, even though my vision went black, it's like my spiritual vision went totally light. It's like the lights were turned on in my spirit to the understanding of true truth, the true truth of the Bible. And so I knew God was real, the devil was real, heaven was real, hell was real, the Bible was real. And I knew based on my life that I would not be going to heaven. I would be going to hell. I had denied Jesus with my life. I denied him with my words. I had made fun of Christians. I had actively rejected him with my life. And so I knew what my fate was. I went from having dark black vision, that understanding, to descending down at this point. So it's like I was falling and I fell down into what I call the first level of my experience of hell. In this level, I'm in this dark, dingy, like crack house scene where there's all these other people that have in their life were addicted to something, whether it's drugs or alcohol. It's this dark, dingy room, and everyone is frantically in pain and anxiety and worry. They're all running around this room looking for the thing on earth that they were addicted to satisfy their desire. But there was nothing in that room. There was needles, but there was no drugs. There was probably a bottle, but no alcohol in it. And so there's all these empty hopes, these empty dreams, these people running around. I'm right there with them, looking for anything to get rid of this physical pain, to get rid of this fear. I had anxiety attacks on the earth before that. This was anxiety times 1,000. It was fear to the max. It was physical pain to the max. And there was no substance in that first level of hell, the first level of torment that could satisfy. And so everyone is just constantly running around looking for it. I was interacting with the people in the room. I actually remember trying to shoot up a drug with someone else, and it just wasn't working. There was no drug. My physical body was on the bed, but I was still in a body, and it was still completely me. I was just in a different realm. And so it was totally like reality. I even explained it's like magnified reality. It was way more real than this conversation I'm having right now with you guys. And so, yeah, that was the first level. The next thing I know, I'm now descending down to a different level. And in this level, it is a dark room. The other room was dimly lit, but this is a completely dark room with just a little bit of light, maybe, because I'm looking at this, what I describe as a demonic grandmother figure sitting across from me, and she's just staring at me. I see half of her face is in the light and the other half is in the darkness. And the half of her face that's in the light is the most beautiful, attractive, almost angelic sight that I had seen. And so at first I thought she was good and that she was for me and that maybe she was going to be a rescue out of this place of torment. But then she turned her face to the side and it was the most demonic, grotesque, flesh-eaten, evil face that I could imagine. I was just staring at her, she was staring at me, and all of a sudden these animal figures started to come out of her. One of them was this this like massive wolf that was coming out of like her bosom towards me. And it was almost like it was going to eat me alive. And so I was fearful in the first level, but I was even more fearful in the second level. It's because I can describe the feeling. It was like I was about to die every second, but I didn't die. And so imagine a gun being pointed to your head and that feeling of fear. Oh, I'm about to die. It was a further and further death. Like every second I'm about to die, but you don't die and you're still aware. And so I remember with this grandmother figure as well, I could hear the voices of what sounded like demonic children in a room just to the next of this room that I was in. And they were asking to tear me apart, to eat me alive, to destroy me. They kept asking this grandmother figure, can we come now? Can we destroy him now? Can we kill him now? Can we eat him now? It was the most animalistic, cannibalistic, beastly, gross, just carnal, evil experience in this room. And the woman kept saying, no, not yet, not yet, not yet. It's like there was something protecting me. She couldn't have access to me, even though she was sitting across from me. There was an invisible protection. How I left each level was mysterious. It was just, I was in a room and then I was in a different room, just as quickly as that. And so after the demonic grandmother figure with the legion of children or demons that wanted to kill me, immediately, and I was in a different level. And I call this third level a level of reprieve or a window of grace. So in this third level, I'm now in a different hospital room. It was like I was in a scene from the 1970s, like everything was old and different and kind of nostalgic. There were 3 African American ladies singing gospel music over me. They were singing praise to God, and it's like they were singing prayers over me. And so I think of Psalm 139, where David says, even if I make my bed in hell, you're still there with me. And so I know I had so many people praying for me. My dad I think he was there in the room when all this was happening. I know he was praying for me. Church family was praying for me. Different churches in the city. My grandma was praying for me. And so even when my heart is stopped and I'm descending into this torment, into this experience of hell, God is still willing and able to show mercy and to answer the prayers of his people for someone like me. These 3 African American ladies singing gospel music over me, singing prayers, and they were assuring me that I was going to be okay. They said, you're going to be okay, you're going to make it. But my heart was so entrenched in sin and condemnation. There's a scripture that says, even when our heart condemns us, God is greater than our heart. But my heart was still condemning me. I still felt unworthy. I still didn't feel like I should deserve any sort of love or acceptance or mercy or rescue from this place. And so my heart kept condemning me. And so I actually descended. I left that level. I didn't receive the grace or the mercy that was being offered in that moment as my ticket out. I'm hellbound. This is where I'm going to be forever. It's too late for me is what the lie I was believing. I'm in this complete darkness again for this 4th level. And my understanding is I'm going to be here forever. And I know from the Bible that, or at least what I thought I knew, is the devil is the ruler of hell, or this is his domain. And so I thought I might as well agree with the devil. If I'm going to be here forever and this is his domain, I might as well start pretending like I agree with him. And I know the devil hates God. He hates Jesus. He hates the truth. He hates righteousness. So I'm in this deep, dark void in this 4th level. I might as well start speaking out what the devil believes or what he might want to hear, so that maybe he'll give me a beer or a cup of cold water, or he'll relieve some of this pain if he rules this place. And so I start cursing God and cursing Jesus with every curse word that I knew, because I knew that's what he does. And so I started saying every curse word I knew with God and Jesus attached to it. And every time I did, I kept descending lower and lower and lower. And there was no light at the end of this experience. It was just deeper darkness, deeper pain, deeper torment. So I realized after cursing God and Jesus for a while that this was not getting me anywhere, that the devil wasn't waiting for me down there with a cup of cold water. I was only going deeper and deeper into this experience of hell. And so I realized that wasn't my ticket out. That was my ticket lower. And so at the end of this experience, it's like I'm laying in this deep, dark void. I've stopped falling now. When I stopped cursing God and Jesus, I stopped descending, which was at least good, but I'm in this deep, dark void, completely alone, no one around me, complete isolation, total fear, total pain, inside and out. And my understanding is this is where I'll be stuck forever. I've stopped cursing God, stopped cursing Jesus. And the next thought that comes into my mind after this is my plight, I'm going to be here forever, is the word yes. I didn't know who or what I was saying yes to. I just knew I had to say yes. I yelled yes with everything I had left in me. And immediately, as soon as I yelled yes, I was back to life, back on the hospital bed. It went from everything was wrong and everything's painful, I'm going to be there forever, to the most glorious peace. It was like all the turbulent waters of my soul were completely stilled in one moment when I said the word yes. So I'm feeling this peace, getting my bearings in the hospital room. The first thing I remember was seeing these old video clips from my life, like a life review. What I remember seeing was me as a little kid, a little boy, 5, 6, 7 years old, playing football with my dad. Being a kid, carefree, throwing the football with my dad. I was still laying on the hospital bed. I looked up to the right, and on the wall of the hospital, I saw a Bible verse written on the wall, like with a person's finger. It was like handwriting. It wasn't perfect print. It was like someone took their finger and wrote on the wall of the hospital. And it was how I described, like the color of lightning. It was bluish white, like fire coming out of the wall. And it said, John 3:16. For God so loved the world that he gave his only son Jesus, that whoever believes in him would not perish or die eternally, but have everlasting life. I knew at this point who I said yes to. I had said yes to the God of the Bible. I'm feeling the literal Prince of Peace in the room. He's just rescued me, and he is endorsing his rescue with his own peace. I remember kind of being in like a heavenly daze almost for like 24 hours in that hospital. Like everything, I was like sitting in this peace and everything was great. And then kind of the reality of I didn't know how to live life without alcohol. There were still things in my body and my mind that I had to kind of relearn how to live life. And so reality kind of set in after a day. I went to a rehab facility where I learned really, really good things from this rehab of how to live life sober and ways to overcome addiction. And I came home and lived with my parents for a while, for a number of months, and I was learning how to live life again, how to experience joy without a substance, and all with the memory of that incredible experience, the supernatural experience of God rescuing me in the hospital. But it still took me about 6 or 7 months until I had another experience. There's a couple times where I went out and drank again, because that was like my trigger response to everything in life. And so it was way less than I did before, but there were certain moments where I stumbled and relapsed. And so I was kind of in this tension of believing that there's freedom, but still feeling trapped. And so on July 23rd, 2013, feeling these feelings, having just fallen the day before, I walk into my parents' bedroom where this worship song is playing. And I'm feeling this brokenness, and all of a sudden these lyrics and this music, it's like the very song of heaven. This was a song of deliverance for me that he had prescribed for me on that day. And I didn't know, I was unsuspecting walking in. And so this worship leader is singing this song like directly from heaven over my heart, and every lyric is piercing my heart. I knew in that moment I had this supernatural knowing and understanding that he saw all of my sin, all of my failure, all of my brokenness, all of my depression, all of my anxiety. He saw all of my mess, but yet he was looking the other way. He was saying, I don't care about that. I just want you. And so it was like the person of Jesus walked into that room, the person of love. And I didn't see Jesus, but I felt him. I felt his love fill my heart, fill my mind, fill my body, fill the room. And I was just basking in this unconditional love for like 45 minutes. And I was just weeping, crying, saying, you love me so much. Thank you for never giving up on me. And so during those 45 minutes where Jesus, the man of love, walked into the room, I was delivered. Perfect love casts out all fear. Perfect love casts out all demons. All my attachment and desire for alcohol was delivered during those 45 minutes. Song of Solomon says, your love is better than wine. And I lived out that verse. That verse became flesh. For me, the word became flesh, and his love was better than anything I'd tried. It was the best feeling, the best substance, the best tangible reality. And so I walked out of that room as a different person. He rescued me 7 months prior from death, gave me a chance to learn how to live life, and then he met me as the man of love. And I've been in love with Jesus ever since that day, those 45 minutes, that moment. He gave me a new heart, a heart that was selfish and hard and cold towards him before. He gave me a heart of flesh that was tender and responsive and full of his love for himself. And so from that day onward, instead of, I used to have like an IV drip of alcohol basically in my life, I now had an IV drip of worship music or of the Bible, communing with him, to where during definitely that first year, I would have my earphones in and be listening to constant praise and worship music, constantly hearing about his love through song and experiencing him. And so I went all in. I put all of my eggs in the Jesus basket, all of my eggs in his love basket. And I became a really satisfied customer with the Lord to where he fulfilled all my desires. He delivered me from all of my fears. There's obviously still a sanctification process that I'm still on the journey of 10 years later at 33, but he just replaced all of my desire for alcohol or from acceptance from others or success on paper. I knew I was eternally successful because the Son of God loved me and gave himself for me and wanted to be with me. And that became my ultimate desire in life, was just to be with him, just to be near him, talk to him, listen to him. And that still is my ultimate desire. I have an amazing wife, 3 kids. I get to pastor with my dad in an amazing church. I have so many fulfilling aspects of my life, but still my number one is opening that Bible every single morning, talking to Jesus, putting on worship music, telling him that he's beautiful, and he gets to tell me in return that he loves me and likes me and loves to spend time with me. And so it's been a honeymoon with the Lord for the last 10 years, and he's satisfied every desire of my heart. It used to be about building my name and my kingdom and drawing attention to myself, and now the Lord has shown me, John 15, that without him I am nothing. I know I'm nothing. I know I can do nothing apart from his grace and his love and he's shown me my utter depravity and poverty apart from him. But then on the other side, he's shown me that with him, all things are possible. And I love drawing attention to his glory and his name and his fame, because he literally rescued me from death. I had no ability to rescue myself. I didn't even know who I was saying yes to, and that's how much his mercy and his love reached in to rescue me. And so I'm thankful that each and every day he shows me that I'm nothing without him. He allows me to see that, and then from that place, I get to live for his name, his fame, his glory, and draw attention to him, saying I was the worst of the worst. I was literally cursing his name in hell, and his mercy still wasn't run out on me. There was still more. And so he allowed me to go to some of the deepest depths of evil and even the experience of hell to show the depths that his mercy can go, and to show how he really is the hero in my story.
Kyle's story is such a dramatic picture of the way God rescues each one of us from death into life. I really love hearing him recount the process God took him on, finding his identity in God's love rather than in his own abilities and intellect. In response to this dramatic salvation experience, Kyle no longer has a desire to gain recognition and praise for himself, but he wants all the focus to be on Jesus. Kyle lives here in Austin, and we've known him personally for over 7 years now. His story is dramatic for sure, and sometimes it can be easy to write off stories like that, but we would encourage you to take this one to heart. The fruit of Kyle's life is a real testimony to the authenticity of his faith and life with Jesus. I've personally heard this story dozens of times now, and each time I listen, it just makes me love Jesus more. The rescue Kyle experienced is true of all of us who are in Christ. The truth is, Jesus saves us, not because he wants to make bad people good. He saves us to make dead people alive. If you're just joining us for the first time, welcome. We hope you're encouraged by this story. There are 12 stories in Season 1 just waiting for you, so be sure to check those out. The Season 1 wrap-up episode gives some of our favorites, so if you're not sure where to start, we would suggest going there. Stay tuned for our next episode, where you'll get to meet Eddie Smith. Eddie grew up in the inner city of Chicago, and it was a crazy and rough and violent environment where Eddie had to struggle just to survive.
Everyone kind of knows their place. There's a pecking order in poverty culture. The pecking order is might is right.
This interview was so fascinating for us, and we think you're going to love his story called The Journey. We have so many great stories coming in Season 2. These are stories about human trafficking, accidental death, family struggles, performing for approval, and spiritual warfare, just to name a few.
Hi, my name is Anna Williams, and I'm from Mena, Arkansas. I love Story Partners because I love hearing people's stories firsthand. And Story Partners is a nonprofit ministry that tells stories that point to Jesus. We tell these stories through short documentary films, as well as this podcast. We're a crowd-funded ministry, funded by monthly giving from people like me. To learn more or to join our crowdfunding community, visit us at storypartners.org.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Story Partners podcast. This story was recorded and edited by Walt and Annie Manus. If you were encouraged by it, we hope you'll share it with a friend. We'll see you next time.